Alright, so I'm out in my personal space today. You can see I've done a little bit here in prep work. I've got a little pile of firewood off to my side. I've laid some of the grass and stuff down. And I got my pack and my notebook over here out of the car. And all I'm going to do today is I want to do a couple of quick setups, and I'm not going to film the whole thing, so I'll just show a couple of the points after I get them set down of a couple of different tarp shelters. And then after that, the next video that you'll probably see me piece together is going to be a couple of different knives and maybe some hatchet and axe testing. You may hear some noise in the background. This space is close to a community. Also, this year we're doing a big improvement on the place. Off to my right, you may hear, if it's in stereo, some machinery running. They're dredging out our pond. So what was a silted in old pond is going to be about 10 foot deep, which is a big plus for us. Then off to my left, you may hear some machinery running. They're reseeding an old field with some food plot stuff and some cover crops. So fire's going, pile of firewood's here, and I'm just going to build a few different shelters and show you some things with a couple different style tarps. So stay tuned, stay right here, keep watching as I go through this. I'll get them set up first, and then I'll talk about how I did the setup and may show some key points, and then go from there. Folks, so here's video one, or shelter one, down here below this bar. This was using parts out of a shelter kit that stays in the car generally. This is a British Basha. I'll pick camera up here in a minute and show you exactly what I've done. That kit contains nothing but a little bit of cordage, in this case bank line, 8 or 10 aluminum stakes, and this tarp, okay? It's part of a backpack. I just showed another video that's got all kinds of other goodies in it. So I'm gonna pick it up. This is a simple A-frame. It's a tunnel all the way through. I'm not sure if you can see that. There's nothing closing the end off. Show you exactly what all goes into this. It's a pretty quick and easy shelter to set up. I set up a pot hanger there, as you can see. See this from the side. You can see that it's oriented towards my fire to let some heat in or smoke through in the warmer months to keep bugs down. It is on the ground. I use nothing but a pole there that I cut right here off the property. I carved the end down a little bit, which allowed me to stick it through the grommet hole there. Let's see if I can not shake a whole bunch while I do this. Get over here, we can see that grommet. And see that pole comes right through there, and then my guy line ties off to it and goes down to a stake down there where it's tied off. Then back up here, I've staked off the 4 corners. You can easily seal it off closer to the ground by just putting more stakes in, and then the back is the same way. Just a stick through the grommet, post it in the ground, and then a guy line that runs down and stake down. So you can see an extremely simple and pretty effective shelter to stay dry. Now that thing's not going to hold a lot of heat, but it will keep you dry. So that's shelter one. Done in a hurry. I think it maybe, cutting sticks and everything, maybe took me 15, 20 minutes max to put that thing together. Now, the other things that I carry make life much more comfortable in this small shelter, such as a space blanket, one of the heavy-duty emergency space blankets. If I were actually going to sleep in here tonight, I'd have that down as a ground pad underneath me at minimum, with some other foliage underneath it for some insulation. So that's shelter one. I'm going to go on and set up a second one for you. Alright, so here's shelter number two. This is a semi-pyramid shelter that was shown in Self-Reliance Illustrated sometime last year, is where I picked it up from. It gives you some distinct advantages over other types of shelter, but with a tarp this size, you're only going to fit one person in it. I'm using a single pole here. It's actually a pole from just a hiking pole. Picked up at Walmart, real inexpensive. I wouldn't put a lot of stress on it, but for this it works pretty well. What this gives you that you don't get with some other single tarp shelters is a floor. At least something for the majority of the bottom. With this tarp, since the things don't overlap very well, which I'll show in a second, you don't get a complete coverage. But there is enough room in here, like I said, for one person to curl up and lay down. And the other distinct advantage is it gives you the ability, with a couple of other pieces of cordage, to tie it shut and give you some protection in the front from the elements, whether it be the wind or the rain, whatever the case may be. So, do the walk around here with this, show you how it goes together, and what the inside and the back side look like. On the front, like I said, it's a single pole here in the center that again is guy lined out. I've moved the guy line off to the side of my fire here so that it's not directly over my flame. That pole goes into a loop or a stake pocket at the top. Start at the back when you actually put it together, and you stake the center of the long edge down, and then you pull the insides, or the sides to the inside to make a triangle on the inside here, and you stake it down there. Now, if I just used single sticks instead of my stakes, I'd be able to overlap those two eyelets, same back in the back. There's another pair of eyelets there that I'd be able to overlap as well and give you a little more coverage on the floor. Stake that down, and then you stake down your outer corners here as tight as you can. Then you stand up your center section with your pole and guy line it out. And that's it. 5 stakes. 4 on the body, back corner, each outer corner, and the center, and then 1 for your guy line pole, and you're done. It goes up quick, gives you some good protection, gives you some reflection for heat. Really, overall, a simple, effective shelter for one tarp. Poncho would be tough to do with this. It's just not quite big enough. These are quite larger than a poncho, so they work really, really well with this Basha tarp. So that's shelter number 2 I wanted to show off. Okay, here's number 3. This is a poncho half rigged on its own as a tarp shelter. Standard issue poncho half. You saw my other video with how I rigged it to make a really small A-frame. It's the exact same one with the extra grommet holes and everything. I rigged a taut line here, which I'll show in a little more detail, and the knots that I used here and how I rigged this to make it extremely useful for at least one more shelter after this, if not 2 more. I've got to check my notes. Set up about waist high. See here, the top of it is coming up to just under my waistline, at least the top of the guy line is, or the taut rope is. Gives you enough room to crawl in and get back in out of the weather. I mean, I'm reaching up here, my fingertips are just touching the top. I'm back in, I've got cover on the ends, on either end from me, and when I lay down, I'm not in contact with this. So I'll go around and give you the tour, show you how it sets up. Okay, so you've seen this shelter half before, so you know it's just a regular issue shelter half with an extra grommet in the center on either end, one there and one over there. Okay, that's all it is. And then I've added some extra tie outs, an extra grommet on this side where the 2 would snap together. Doesn't impede its use as a full shelter. I've always got a couple D-rings hooked to the outside of my bag, always some in the car, here, there, and everywhere. So what I did is, this is, I would say, if I were to buy this, it would be a heavy-duty bank line. I found it in an antenna kit that was getting junked. The antenna had been turned in. This was just part of the accessories to it. On the end, it has a steel clip, so that allows me to go around the tree, clip onto it, and I'm hooked on that end. Then to attach this side of the shelter, I tied a prusik knot, hooked that to my D-ring, hooked that to my shelter half. On the other end, I got a little more creative. You can see my mess of extra cordage down here. This thing is probably 30 foot long. The quick little night eyes, figure 9 clips or whatever they call them. The little tie hooks. So you come through here, pull taut, and then wrap around that, and it locks in, it's not coming out. And then I hook that back on the line. So that was the rigging for my taut line. Again, another Prusik knot, another aluminum D-ring, hooked right up. In the back corner, I'm staked down in 2 spots. That's all. I could stake down in the center too if I was really concerned about it. For this, I'm not that concerned about it. But 2 issue stakes out of the 10 or so that I carry with it, along with the poles. And then if you were really getting into some nasty weather, you could of course tie up to a 3rd point here just by tying that off. You could tie in with a button, as I like to call it. Just pull a piece of cordage around one of these snaps and stake that down, and then stake down here also. And that's how your ends close in, is the sides of this folding down. So that is that shelter, that lean-to style shelter. Really quick, really easy, inexpensive. All right, so here we have shelter number 4. What I like about this is most people starting out and just trying to get into bushcraft for the first time are probably not going to spend a ton of money on equipment. A very versatile item to have in everybody's kit is a standard poncho, and it doesn't have to be a camouflage army issue poncho. Go out and buy a good solid poncho. Any nylon coated poncho will work. You can find some heavy ones. I've got a heavy water resistant coated Cordura one that's made out of like 500D Cordura that's going to hold up forever. It's perfect for this sort of thing, but it's in another kit. I used it last time I was out in the woods. But the poncho gives you something to wear, something to wrap up in, something to use for shelter. It's a great cover. You tie up the hood like I'll show in this, and then this is set up as a basic lean-to with an overhang, which does a couple things for you. When that heat does come in, or your body heat escapes, it's going to be reflected back in a secondary spot. My fire's too far away and too large, physically large, tall-wise, to be used under this. It'll burn right through this. But also in rain, that rain will hit, and with an open front one, you don't have anything to deflect the rain off the front. This gives you another cover right here in front. So when I crawl down in it, I am all but sitting up right at the peak. I mean, I'm slouched down just a little bit to fit in here. But then when I lay out, I've got all the room that I need to lay down inside this shelter. But I've got plenty of cover in front of me in case of rain. So I'll do the quick walk around on this one. It's set up extremely similar to the shelter half design that I just did. I just left that taut line in place. So from this angle, you've got a really good look at what it looks like. Down on the end, give you kind of the cross section here. You can see the overhang. 4 stakes, 2 guy lines, some tie outs in the grommets because my stakes are too big for the grommets. So here you can see I've staked down, just used a piece of bank line, girth hitched through the grommet. Stretched right over the top of the taut line, tied to another tie out that's run down to a stake. The hood is the most important part, because without tying the hood out right, you can't get anywhere. You can see this one's balled up. So the simplest way to do this, just untie it here and do it. Make sure that I've got you backed up far enough that everybody can see this. I normally do it while it's laying out, so this may be a little awkward for me. It may appear to be awkward, but when you've got it laying down on the ground, it's pretty simple to do. This is the original drawstring that came in the hood. And all you do is cinch that hood down as tight as it'll go. Open it back up. That's how most of the time you'll find it, with that hood opened up for a head to come through. So you pull that drawstring down as tight as you can get it. I mean, really wrench on that thing. Lock the lock down. And I like to roll the top up down to here. And then I bunch that all inside and give it a twist. And then I take my drawstring, what's left of it here, and I wrap that all the way around it. You'll get 2 or 3 wraps out of it, and then just a simple half hitch through that. Now the other things you can do with that if you need to, and I'm going to show you in the next one, doing it from the outside, but from the inside, if you needed to, you could shove a stick in that drawstring, in that hood hole, and push this whole thing out like that, so that you got some extra height in it if you needed it. Okay, so this is number 5. It's almost the last one I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do one more after this to hang out for the rest of the afternoon. I've never set this shelter up before. This is the first time I did it. It took me about 14 minutes. It is not difficult in any way, shape, or form. I always just called it a corner up, but after doing some more research, I found that its technical name is a plow point. It's also been called a diamond shelter. It's got several different names. So again, it's a regular tarp. I used 3 stakes and some of that bank line. I'd cut the bank line short when I used it for the previous one, so you'll see some clips in here. You could do it without any clips at all. And then I moved my taut line up. Also, I'll show you that. There really isn't much to be said. It's going to be better off shown, other than if I were really using this in a scenario, my fire would be moved. Right now you can see my fire over my shoulder. I would probably put a reflector wall back a little bit next to this tree and put my fire right in here, giving me a good entrance and exit here, or vice versa. Put the fire on this side, depending upon the prevailing wind direction at the time of year. So, I've got obviously enough room to sit up. I'm completely covered. I could stake down back here if I was really concerned about it, or I could pile up some duff or leaf litter there to close that in. So I'll do the walk around, show you how it went together, and then you guys can kind of see how that works. And then we'll do one more shelter after this. Okay, again, basic issue poncho. I've got one corner tied up just above waist high here at the tree. It's probably 8 inches above my waist right on the tree. You could do that with just rope. I just threw some clips together to make it reach and stretch far enough. Then the next step is along the ridge. You stake down the far corner, and then you stake out each outside corner from there and there. And then you can do this a couple different ways. You can see I just took my taut line that I moved up higher on the tree, ran a cord from my hood right up to my taut line, tied it off. You could run a stick, a long stick from higher up your tree there, all the way down back here, and tie your center up to that. It'd have to be a fairly long and tall stick. Or if you had overhead branches, you'd be able to throw a rope over a branch and bring it down and tie it up. For the inside, come over to this side, it's a little more open. That back side pulled up a lot when I pulled the hood up, just because of the way the hood rolled. You could straighten that out. Actually, you could untie that hood and retie centered on it, and it would pull straight up. But you can see there's ample room in there, and I'll climb back in it so you can get an idea of how much really when you compare it size-wise. I am fully undercover right now on both sides. I can get all the way back in here, and I am still sitting up without touching anything. And then if I lay down in the poison ivy, which I'm sure you'll hear about later, my feet are stretched all the way back and inside, and there's still 2 more feet of cover overhead. I'm 5'7", I'm a short guy, but there's still plenty of cover overhead. So really simple, extremely effective, can easily be closed in on the ends if you needed to with extra covers of some kind. So this is a good one to know, and I have a feeling I will use this in the future on camping trips. All right, so this one takes a little more equipment. It's really not a lot though, and I've got a really a pretty neat mixture of high-end gear and low-end and kind of engineered gear here. I am laying in, or sitting in right now, a $20 hammock from Gander Mountain. It packs up the same way that most of the other hammock brands. I'm not going to throw any names out there because I haven't tried any of them, so I don't even want to get any names spinning around. But it's got its own little stuff sack, hangs off the sides, all stuff's in there. Came with some steel D-rings. I replaced them with aluminum D-rings, and I haven't adjusted it yet, but on that end, I've got one regular tie-down strap, cam buckle tie-down strap. And what I will do at home, now that I've tried it and it works really well, is I'm going to cut the hooks off of it and just hook a D-ring directly to it to use it. The other end has the original ropes that came with it. $20 hammock, $5 tie-down strap, a couple $4 aluminum D-rings. This hammock, I'll lay down after I talk about the tarp, really envelops you and closes you in. I didn't hang a quilt underneath it if I was going to stay here tonight, which it's going to be really hard not to because this thing is pretty rocking. I'd got a whoopee that I'd hang underneath to serve as a quilt, and then another sleeping bag or blanket that I'd actually sleep in. If temperatures are getting really cold, I'd bring the roof down much lower to the hammock. That fire'd come over just a little bit, though where it's at right now, I can feel heat when I stand in here that it's capturing at the roof line. The tarp is a Kifaru paratarp that I've just stretched out like a tarp using my taut line as seen earlier, a couple guy lines, and some stakes. So I'll do the tour in just a second. You guys get the best humor you're going to get the whole video. I'm going to lay down and show you how this thing folds completely around me and closes me in. And then when I get out, I'm probably going to swing and probably almost fall on my butt. If you've not tried hammock camping, I've done it one time, did not think I was going to like it at all, and I did it even cheaper than this. I used one of those $9 imps nets and a couple D-rings to bring the ends together. Whoopee for a quilt underneath. It was in early April this year when I was out with JD from River Rat. Man, I love it. It's comfortable. You're off the ground. There's no bugs. If it rains, you don't have to worry about water getting underneath you. If you hang your tarp right, you don't get wet. You can put your gear, if you're using a quilt underneath, you can throw your shoes in on the quilt, and that stays up off the ground too. You can hang your gear from the guy line. You can put your keys and everything in the little stuff sack. It's great. It's comfortable. It works really well. So get out there and try it. It's worth doing. So I'm going to lay down. You guys can laugh at me when I get up, and then we'll walk around and show you how everything went together. When I get in, the feet are in, and the sides come all the way around and actually close here. If this had Velcro or some other type of fastener on it, this would be completely closed around me. So this, with a quilt underneath to keep you warm, is a great night's sleep. Once you stop swinging, a little bit of sway isn't bad. A big swing will get you sick. But once you stop that, it is one of the most comfortable night's sleep you'll ever get. And it will be very hard for me to leave this shelter here in the little pit and go home and sleep in my bed. This is just so comfortable for the night, especially on a cool night. So let's do the tour around it, see if I fall. The best way to get in and out, thank you JD for teaching me this, is just to straddle it and stand up and get off of it. It's the easiest way to go about it. Okay, so from here you can see the whole hammock laid out inside there. Here's where I will cut the hooks off of this, and I will just run my D-ring right through these two loops where the hooks went. I'll cut the loops. I'm going to try and bend them first so I can reuse them for something else because I'm cheap like that. Then the other end, you can see the ropes. This tree is so large that the two ropes that came with it, I girth hitched together and then girth hitched around the tree, and then a D-ring to them. Another great use of a prusik knot. This is the yellow rope here, is the guy line that goes in the peak of my paratarp, and then here's a smaller girth hitch tied onto it that I hook back to my night eyes, and then I can just pull this taut. Guy line down to the ground on that side and staked out. On this corner, staked out back here, right in there. Same on the front two corners, and then up here, man, I really can't say enough about these little night eyes things. These little S hooks, these are the small ones. They're not bearing a lot of weight. It's just a taut line. That's hooked to the taut line. See if it focuses, and then hooked to my paratarp. So that's how the end's done. It simplifies your life. It goes so much faster. And that was it for setup. Really goes quick. Really gets comfortable in a hurry. So, like I said, if you haven't done any kind of hammock camping, get out there and try it. It's extremely comfortable, and they pack small. These two things together in my pack take up less than a loaf of bread. It's a bag about that long, about that tall or wide, and about that thick, and that includes steaks. Everything that's in here fits in that bag. So it's quick, it's easy, it's lightweight, and man, is it comfortable. So get out there, spend some time in the woods. It's a Friday that I took off work. I got out here about 9 o'clock this morning. It's about 2:45. It's clouding up outside. I'm going to go ahead and leave a shelter up, probably take this down, and I'm going to sit back and do another little bit here on some inexpensive knives. So if you're still interested in anything that I've shown today, shoot me an email, JLJMonky, JLJmonkey without the E, at gmail.com, and I can tell you where I got any of this equipment. I can tell you how I modified it if I did in any way, tell you how I did the setup in a little more detail if you want to know about it. Just shoot me an email or post a response on YouTube. I read all your responses. I try and respond to them if there's questions. The knife video is in response to a question. So just give me a shout out and let me know what you think. And get out there in the woods and play. That's what it's all about. It's not about watching me. Hopefully it's raining or something where you're at, and that's why you're watching. Get out and play in the woods. It's good.